Mae Krier, an original Rosie the Riveter, was born in 1926 in North Dakota. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Mae, her sister, and a friend headed to Seattle, Washington, where Mae became a riveter for Boeing, making B-17s and B-29s for 92 cents an hour. She met Norm, her late husband, a sailor, on the dance floor in 1944. Norm was transferred to Pasco, Washington, and in April 1945 they married. She left Boeing to work for the Army Engineers with Italian prisoners of war in Pasco at 83 cents an hour. Eventually, they settled in Pennsylvania, where they raised their two children and where Mae still resides today. Mae joined other Rosies to get the first National Rosie the Riveter Day in 2017 and the Congressional Gold Medal for Rosie in 2020. During the pandemic, through her Facebook page, Honor Rosie, Mae, with the help of companies, groups, and individuals, made and mailed over 6,000 red and white polka dot face masks. 5,000 masks went directly to her Honor Rosie followers. In 2022, her face mask and bandana were worn by Rosie the Rocketeer in the commander's seat of the Boeing Starliner, which traveled to the International Space Station and back. Mae continues to travel the world to promote Rosie the Riveter's legacy. And at 97 years, Mae still cuts her own grass. Now it's time to join Breaking Barriers with Mae Krier. Hi, everybody. Hi, Mae. How you doing?
Good morning, Deb. I'm doing fine.
Good. We'd like to welcome our first podcast guest, Raya Kenney. Raya is currently working on a memorial to be built in Washington, D.C. to honor women who worked on the home front during World War II. How are you, Raya?
Hi, Deb. I'm good. How are you?
Good morning,
Good.
Ryan.
Good morning, May. Good to see you.
We're partners
So,
in crime.
Yes, we are.
so Raya, tell us about this journey that you began at a very young age.
Yeah, certainly. So this is a project that began in the fifth grade. My teacher assigned a project to build a model monument to someone or something that hadn't been recognized in Washington, D.C. And having just watched the film A League of Their Own about the women baseball players during World War II, I was enamored by these women who took over for the men for arguably the first time. And I started researching. And I learned that not only were these women baseball players, but they broke into 80 different new industries during the war, and started working and kept our country running while the men went off to fight. And I was in love. And so I decided to build my model to them. And when my teacher saw what I had built, she said, Raya, you should really make this a real thing. And the 10-year-old me, not thinking twice, said, okay. And so that's when the journey began. It's been a long journey. I am now a senior in college. So it's been upwards of 11 years now. But the first step, I reached out to my local representative. I gave them my pitch. And everyone along the way has thought it's a really great idea because these women are chronically underrepresented in our nation's capital. And a lot of people don't even know about the work that they did. And so that's what I'm trying to do, change the narrative and get these women in the front of everything where they belong.
So you're covering all the women. Mae has always said that Rosies weren't just riveters; they were women who did other things that men did. And my mother, for example, drove an ambulance, and I never thought of her as a Rosie until Mae shared that with me.
Mm-hmm.
So this year you got the legislation passed, right?
Yes, it passed in December of 2022, towards the end.
And explain what that means as far as passing it and what you have to do to continue to have it built.
Yes. So what passed in 2022, it was included in the omnibus bill, allows us to build on federal land in the District of Columbia. But in order for that to happen, we need to work with senators and congresswomen continually. And we're also working on site selection. So once we decide where we want the memorial to go, we're going to have to work on what it's going to look like. And that's going to involve a lot of different committees, the Commission of Fine Arts, National Park Service, and National Capital Planning Commission, to make sure we're making the most representative memorial possible in the district. And while we're working on that, we're also working on fundraising because, as you know, projects like these actually they do cost a bit of money. And in order to actually build the thing, we're going to need somewhere in the millions worth of dollars to get it done. So I'm currently reaching out to companies that first employed women during the war, and talking with women's groups and other women-led projects to not only get word out about what we're doing, but also to share it so maybe they can work with us as well. And in part of that journey too, meeting and talking to Rosies like Mae to get a sense of their story and make sure that not only I'm representing them accurately, but just like the continuing inspiration of being able to talk to people I'm actually trying to recognize has been arguably the best part of this entire project.
So did you think when you first started this that you were going to have to go through all of this?
Oh my goodness, no, Deb, I had no idea. I thought that I could just honestly take a toolkit to the National Mall and just build it myself. I had no idea what hurdles I would have to be leaping through. I like to say this is a hands-on improvised learning process. So every time I meet with someone in their field who kind of knows what this process should look like or could look like, since it's not a very common one, I learn 10 new steps that I need to do. So I like to say, you know, there is a booklet out there that has the steps for establishing a national memorial. And I don't remember how many steps there were. It wasn't too many, but the entire process has been me finding out that each step has about 20 sub-steps. And then each step within the sub-step has about like 3 things you need to get by. So it's been a 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 10 steps forward, 2 steps back. But it's been so fun. I've really, really enjoyed the work.
I think of Mae, if you remember, this might be a woman thing, when you were saying that in addition to what Raya is doing, you have said you'd like to see a statue of Rosie. And what did you say about how easy it would be to just go put it in?
What was that, Deb? You're talking to me?
Yeah. When you would say, I don't know why it's so complicated. We just get a statue and go and bolt it into the memorial, right?
Us Rosies can do it. We just screw it to the ground, you know? But
I wish it was that easy.
Yeah, I do too. And Raya, you a shining example of what I've worked for 40 years. You know, up until 1941, it was a man's world. They didn't know how capable American women were. And we certainly have showed them. And you are an amazing young woman. And I hope that everyone, especially young girls, listen to what you have to say and make them realize what they're capable of. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. I've watched your story from the time you were began. You wrote to me when you first began this. And I just think it's amazing, just absolutely amazing. And the thing that I like is your determination. You don't let up. You just never let up. You just continued until you got the results you wanted. And this is so amazing. And I think this is so important. Don't give up. We can do it, right?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much, Mae. That was awesome. You know what? I do that because that's what you did once too. I'm just continuing the legacy that you've already started for me. I mean, honestly, without the work that you did, I would not have had the opportunity to even begin this kind of work because nobody would have thought I could do it. So thank you for establishing for my generation and the ones that I know that are following that, you know, women are capable of everything a man is capable of, if not better. Don't tell them I said that.
When I first started to ding dong everybody, you know, I'd write everywhere, anything but anyone I could, you know, get listen to me. And they just didn't realize, most of them didn't even know who Rosie Riveter was. Mm-hmm. And I said, so we've come a long way, you and I.
Yeah. Yes, it's true.
Mae, you have often, when you talk about Raya, you also mention when you were in school, and this might give some teachers an idea of a project they could do with their students.
Well, you never know. Every little thing we do is a stepping stone toward our project or what we want to do, what we want to achieve. When we were in school, I remember they were building Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, and I knew they asked for donations. Now, this was during the Great Depression. If we had a penny or a nickel, that was a lot of money. But we would give, our classes would give to help build Mount Rushmore. And the first time I seen Mount Rushmore, I was amazed. I thought, I helped build that. Probably only a penny, a nickel, I don't know at the time. But this is one thing I'd like to talk to the teachers about. They're teaching their classroom, they're teaching their women how to be strong women. They use us as an example. One of the things they could do to help your program is to instill in the children that, to take up a question, make them realize how important it is of what you're doing. And if they help you build it, when they get to Washington, if they get the opportunity to go to Washington and see what you've achieved, they'll say, like, they'll be just like me. They'll say, I helped build that. Even if it's a penny, a nickel, or dime, it all adds up. And so to the teachers out there, I think would be absolutely great if you'd help Raya by asking your children to donate. But tell her story. It's so important that they realize what she's done.
So, Raya, how long? Now you have a certain amount of time to raise the funds, right? Tell us how that
Yes.
works.
My understanding is the legislation gives us 7 years from the time it's passed to that running out to get everything done, including the building of the memorial and the opening. Although I feel as though if we are still making good progress and we can prove that to a committee, they can potentially extend it. But we're on a time crunch anyway, especially since the Rosies, they're not as young as they used to be. And I know we lose more and more every month that goes by. And so getting this done so Rosies can still see what's happening and can go visit their memorial. When I was younger, I used to go to the National Mall and I would see the veterans coming to the World War II Memorial and just being so proud that they had a spot in DC that recognizes the work they did. And I want the Rosies to have that same experience because they deserve it as well. So getting it done as soon as possible is a top priority.
And how is fundraising going?
It's going well.
It can be a slow slog, right?
Yes, I did not realize how hard and scary it is to ask for money. I have to remind myself that I am not asking for money, but I'm asking for money for all of these people, 18 million women. It's going well, though. I think there's been a lot of support. It's just a matter of finding the right group of people. We reached out to a couple big companies and people who have good names. Hopefully, I'll be able to connect with more women CEOs since, a woman was never able to be a CEO in the 1940s. So they should, as they are representatives now, be able to recognize where that came from and hopefully want to contribute to the project.
That's awesome. So you're looking for companies, big or small, right? Any donation, big or small, it all goes to this one amazing project. And
yeah.
Do you keep in touch with your teacher? Does your teacher know that you're still doing this?
Yes, we do. We keep in touch. We have dinner parties on occasion. We see each other pretty regularly. Back home in DC, when I'm not in college, I live about 3 blocks from my local elementary school where she taught. And so I can even go visit her after school if I want to. She's amazing. She's great. We're actually working together right now on building a curricula that we can share with schools across the United States that highlight the role that women played during World War II. Because if you look at the Common Core standards that we have now, they're briefly mentioned, but there isn't sort of an all-encompassing view of everything the Rosies did. And I think that, again, like Mae was saying, it's really important to instill younger boys and girls with the knowledge and awareness of like what came before them and what wasn't there before them too. So
and
fingers crossed on that.
Why we can do what we can today, right?
Exactly, yes.
Now, in your class, do you have any other students who also are continuing with this project, or were you the one student that followed through?
Well, in 5th grade, I was homeschooled, so I was the only one doing this project. I believe she had assigned it before. I don't believe anyone else continued through with their project. But I'm not sure. It's a tough process.
It's a lot of commitment. This is a big commitment on your part,
It is. Yeah, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, some parts of it have been really difficult and there have been really moments of intense frustration and sadness. But then again, I talk with people like you and Mae and all of these wonderful people who have a lot of passion for this project and desire to see it done. And I'm completely reminded of what I'm trying to do and why it is so paramount to show women in our history. Another thing I was thinking about recently too is that if you go to the mall and you look at what we have, there isn't anything. I think there's 2 that are specifically to women. 1 is the but everything else is sort of looking at the men, and it doesn't show the full history of our country. And to a young girl, especially visiting our nation's capital, you look around and you go, where are all the women that made history? So I think adding this memorial into the ones we already have will help to change the way that we're viewing history through a lens that is majority male, when really women did so much for so long. So
Well, don't
yes.
forget, Raya, that there's not too many that are as determined as you and I. You know, they hit a snag and they quit. This is what I try to teach the young girls. You know, we all make mistakes, but we learn so much more from our mistakes. Don't quit. If you have a project or something you want to do, just hang in there. Look at how long it's taken you and I to achieve what we've wanted to achieve. And you know, there's no end to it. We're determined. We're positive people, and we're going to continue till the day we meet our maker.
Yes, we are.
And the legislative process is just frustrating, right? Because did you have to go into a second legislative session?
Yes, we did. Yeah, it was introduced in the House, and it went through almost, but then COVID hit and the government completely stymied. And then we had to go back, and because we ran out of time by the end of that session, we had to start all over again. Luckily, my representative in DC was very accommodating. She just said, I'll do it again. But then I believe the first one wasn't the government shutdown, the second one was, and then the government shut down again. And so there were a lot of roadblocks, a lot of just sitting and waiting, hearing nothing, and just hoping and praying that it is going to move. And then when it did move, it kind of caught me off guard. I was just at work one day when one of my friends called me and let me know that it had gone through. I said, what? Are you serious? It was the best day ever. I cried a bit. I cried a lot, but it's a really, really good day.
I know that feeling when Senator Casey called me and said, Mae, you've got the medal. How do you feel? And I said, you know, I'm just elated. I said, but that journey getting there is so fantastic. And I'm sure you're finding that too, the wonderful people you're meeting along the way.
Absolutely. I couldn't do it without all of the people I've met. They've been really, really incredible. And especially when I kind of want to throw my hands up in the air and go, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. There's always someone that can kind of like nudge me back on the path. You're like, it's going to be okay. So you take a deep breath.
Well, you know, Raya, when I started this, I had no idea where I was going with it. I had no background of training or anything. I just knew that the American women should be honored for what they did. The men got all the credit for winning the war. And they'll tell you they couldn't have won the war without us women and what we did. And so I just stuck in there. I just never gave up. I'd give up for a while, but then I'd read or hear something and I'd be right back in the saddle again. You know, you just got to keep going. And, you know, both of us are very determined people. And that's such a blessing because we set our sights and we really work toward it.
Yeah, don't tell anyone else, but you're the coolest person I know.
But we just admire you. So, like I said, I use you all the time as a shining example of what women and young girls can do. Like I said, we have a brain too. And now the doors are open for us. We can do anything. I just met just a few weeks ago, I met this young woman that became a welder, and she makes catalytic converters. And I said, you know, years ago, they would never imagine a woman doing that for a living. I mean, we had shipyard workers that welded, but after the war was over, the women just went back in the kitchen. You know, it wasn't like we had a career to look forward to. So the doors are wide open, Raya, and go for it.
Have a donate page. If anyone feels as if they want to contribute, anything and everything makes the biggest difference. Even, you know, a dime, as Mae was saying, will help. But also just spreading the word. If you know anybody who works in a company that you thought employed women, get to know them. If there's a woman in your family who would have worked during the war, or maybe you're a daughter of a Rosie, see if you can learn that story. Because I think at the end of the day, yes, money is really important for this project, but also getting that recognition and knowledge that there are Rosies close to you. There were 18 million women. You probably know at least a couple of them. So getting to get those stories out there while you still can and sharing it with the world, I think is something I highly encourage as well.
Okay. Any last words for Raya, Mae?
Well, I think I pretty much told it. Like I use her as a shining example to young people to realize what they can do, what they can achieve if they set their mind to it. And I think, like I said, we love to help you. We want to work with you in any way we can, Raya. And don't hesitate
Thank you.
to call on us.
That's right. And
No, you've been the best. I really appreciate it.
well, Raya, you are a delight. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Yeah,
Good
thank
luck.
you so much for having me.
One
Good luck with
other
your
thing
classes.
I'd like to say to you, Raya. Thank you, Mother and Father. You knew you couldn't do this at your age if you didn't have a total support at home. And I think we need our parents. And I think I was blessed because I grew up in a happy family. And you are doing the same thing. And so we want to thank them as well.
Absolutely. No, to my mom, thank you for everything. She's been holding down the fort while I've been at college. She's done everything under the sun. She's given me hugs. She's the best. I couldn't have done it without her.
That's awesome. Raya, thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck. And we will continue to support you.
Thank
you so much for having me. Thank you, Mae. I will keep you guys updated on all of the progress.
Whatever we can do for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mae. So Thanksgiving is coming, and let's talk about. We have a lot to be thankful for, and
I've got a list a mile long, Deb, of people I'm grateful to. You know, like I said, you can't do these things alone. You have to have a lot of people along the way who support you. And I just think it's so amazing. Like I said, when Senator Casey called and said that, how do I feel now that we've got the gold medal? I said it was absolutely elating. But the journey getting there is so wonderful. I mean, the people you meet. And we've discussed this before. You say the same thing. Our journey, what we've been doing for the last several years has been absolutely fantastic. We have so many people. I've got a list a mile long of people I could thank.
Well, we have a lot to be thankful for. And I know that you felt it particularly when you were in Normandy, and you felt what the sacrifice that the men and women had made for us and for our freedom. And tell us a little bit about Normandy, because that was really touched you.
Well, you know, it was amazing. I told you that Sammy Bromley and her husband Greg and daughter Shannon, they were the ones that took us to Normandy. And you figure we were 5 women, all in our 90s. Now that's a responsibility to take women like this overseas for 2 weeks. And so you start with people like that. You're thankful for. But that trip to Normandy, that was the most emotional trip I've ever taken. As you see, I mean, we knew a little about, not before Normandy, but after Normandy, of course, we knew about it. But when you see what took place there, you want to know more all the time about what it was. When they walked me down to the water to place a rose in the water, we also put a wreath in the water, but I got to throw a rose in. And as I turned around and walked back across that beach, Omaha Beach is huge. And when I walked across that beach, I don't think there was a dry eye among us realizing the blood and bodies that were scattered across that beach and the other beaches that particular time. So you never get over your thoughts always go back to that, and you really appreciate what our American men and women did for us and for our country and for other countries in Europe. I think it's fantastic. And of course, like I said, that wasn't the only trip I've taken overseas. I've gone with Roger. Roger's name is I forget Roger's last name, Copewell, I think it was, and Stephanie Farwell. They're the ones they're called Margraten Plus, and they took me to Belgium, to Netherlands and Belgium with them, and they have the cemeteries there like they do in Normandy, and they honor our men and women. It's beautiful the way they take care of them. But they never forget that we helped liberate them from Hitler. And they've never forgotten that. And they always honor it. It's just a beautiful affair. And of course, the Greatest Generation has asked me to go to Europe with them. We came home on the Queen Mary too, which was a fabulous trip. That one was we got to on the Queen Mary 2. They had it set up where they had a beautiful auditorium, and every day, two of us would speak, tell our stories about World War II and Vietnam. And I thought it was so fascinating. That was so nice. And of course, we have Dave Winters from Tampa, Florida. He's the Black Dagger Group. He worked all the time to get our veterans, our disabled veterans, to get them out, get them up, get them back to living as normal as they can. It just goes on. The list goes on with all these. Daniel Flint down Jacksonville, Florida. Of course, Twilight Wish. I couldn't go without mentioning the Twilight Wish Foundation. Their group in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. They honor retired people, and this is so nice because there's so many retired people that don't have any advantages. One particular program that they did, I thought was so outstanding. This a lady of color had lost her son, and she didn't have any money. She didn't know how she was going to get a monument for his grave. And Twilight Wish Foundation was able to get that monument for her son's grave. And I just think they do the nicest things like this. They were the one that read my first story. And they said, they called the newspaper and they said, for my duty to my country, they would like to send me to our national convention in California, which they did. That was many years ago. And the list is just so many. And of course, at the top of my list is you, Deb.
Thank you.
But I couldn't have done this without you. When you and Will Robinson set up Honor Rosie for me, that was just amazing because we got messages out there that I would never been able to do on my own. Did you tell them about Rosie, Honor Rosie? I think it's interesting.
So Honor Rosie is our Facebook page. I'm the administrator. And we started in 2018 to promote the Congressional Gold Medal for Rosie. And it's kind of become a Mae fan page because Mae's the only Rosie that I have contact with. And so we keep track of all of her trips. They were instrumental in getting the senators to co-sponsor for the Congressional Gold Medal. And they're just really awesome people. During the pandemic, we saw a lot of people become our followers. And one week I had 2 messages from 2 different people saying that Mae and our Facebook page was a shining light in a sky of darkness. And that was during the pandemic. So we've always tried to keep it up and make it a fun page as well. And I'm thankful, Mae, that to be your co-pilot. I've enjoyed it. And then, saving the best for last. Tell us about your family because I know how thankful you are for them. How many greats do you have? Tell us about your family.
Well, before I get to that, Deborah, there's a couple other people. It was cute because Brandy's included in this.
Yep.
I had a call from Daniel Flint from Jacksonville, Florida. He's a teacher. In fact, he was up for Teacher of the Year, I think, a couple of years ago. But he also is active with their paratrooper group down there. And he's the one that asked me, would I skydive? I said, are you crazy? But anyway, he contacted me with Russ, who is the 101st I think they're called Airborne Group. He's absolutely a fantastic person. His wife he married a woman from, I don't know how he met her, but she was a model, I think, and she's from the Ukraine. And he just recently, this past year, he worked so hard to get her mother and brother out of the Ukraine. And that wasn't easy. Now they're living here in the States. And I had the opportunity to meet them twice. They're wonderful people. And I've just marveled so at people like Russ, who are so determined to, takes a lot to get somebody out of a battle, out of a war zone. And he did it. And I just, when you know people like this and see what they do, you're just absolutely amazed. There's so many people. But when I met Daniel Flint from Jacksonville, Florida, he's the one that got me involved with Brandy. And of course, Brandy, you know what she's done. She says, I know you won't skydive. Will you drive a tank? She invited me to Texas, and we just had the most wonderful time. And I did drive a Sherman tank. So thank you, Brandy. But there's so many others that I would like to say.
And there's
Oh,
and
yeah.
in the early time is coal, and you
Oh,
were in
yes.
the
I,
Pentagon, all
oh,
kinds of things.
when we do another podcast, I have to do a whole thing on the Air Force. Coal in the Air Force has just been absolutely fabulous with me. The trips I've taken to Cape Canaveral, Patrick Air Force Base, or just so many. I can't even begin to tell you how many things we've done with the Air Force. In fact, the Air Force has given me a Lifetime Achievement Award, but that's another story. To get back to my family, my mother and father, I came from a nice, good family home, especially my mother's side of the family. It was a large family. And we didn't have anything. So when the holidays would come, especially Thanksgiving, that's always been a special day for me because my mother's families would all get together. Every year we'd go to a different home and everybody would bring their specialty, their dish that was special. And it took a lot of time doing them when the food was so scarce. But as kids, and we'd all get together, all the families, we just had the best time. And you can't imagine what that food was everything with just so many delicious food. People today don't realize they can just run over to Walmart or anywhere to get what food they want already cooked. But that memory will live with me forever. In fact, my grandchildren say, now, I know, Graham, Thanksgiving, you always give thanks for. I have so much to give thanks for. I've had, like I said, I've never had material things, but I've had the best things in life.
So I forget. So I know you have two children. I met one. How many grandchildren, great grandchildren, great greats? How many do you have?
I have 4 grandchildren, 8 great grandchildren, and 3 great grandchildren. And the youngest one is a girl, and they named her after me. And she's a little toughie too. She's cute and she's determined. We got another Rosie on our hands.
There you go. Can't beat that.
No.
So I guess we want to thank people for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving. And we look forward once a month to bringing more people on board to talk about their projects, their experiences. Anything you want to say, Mae?
No, just have a nice Thanksgiving and be thankful for what you have. The most important thing is to have people close to you who love you or understand you. I think that's important. We kind of lose sight of that. And like I say, I just wish you well.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.